How's it going? How's lockdown been for you, and how's the family?
Very well, thanks, Lee. We're actually very lucky in the Isle of Man. There's actually 3 current cases, which are all people coming back from the UK. But for months and months and months there, we hadn't had a case at all. And life here is pretty much as normal. I mean, the cinemas are open, the bars are open, the restaurants are open, and the rest of the world would be quite jealous, I think.
Yeah.
The family's great, thank you. As you know, I've remarried recently, and that kid has just finished his IB. He's gone off to Newcastle, which is worrying times because, he's been safe here on the island, and then you send him off to the northeast of England where, the outbreaks are looking bad again. So it's all a bit crazy out there, but the world must go on, and he's gone off to do his politics and international relationships course, so.
Fantastic. So listen, the kids are important, so thanks for the update, but just as importantly, how are the horses?
Oh, yeah. I dare not say they're even more importantly. Yeah. Well, we've changed the stable. We had 3 or 4 there with Gordon Elliott in Ireland that were jumpers, and Bermonds Hill won 7 first, and a couple of others won 2 or 3 races. And we dispensed with them, and we've upgraded. I've bought a lovely 2-year-old with Richard Hannon. And she's a half-sister to Lemista, who has been a Group 2 and Group 3 winner in Ireland this year. And my mother, God bless her, turns 100 years of age in December.
Wow!
And we bought a present for her. We bought a horse for her. She always told me all her life about being related to James Connolly, the old Irish Republican Army guy. And she had stories about O'Connell Street all the time, where the GPO was there, and the British went in, as you remember, in 1916. The Irish were fighting the Easter Rising because the British were at war. And they thought that was a good time to fight. And, of course, they took over the GPO on O'Connell Street. And believe it or not, this horse was called O'Connell Street. So it was like destiny to buy this horse. He'd been with Nicky Henderson, and I've sent him to Gordon. And he should be running in a week or 2. So keep an eye out for him.
Great story.
So
Great story. Good luck with that. Good stuff.
Thanks.
So, listen, Vince, you and I have known each other for quite some years, but for the benefits of our listeners, maybe give us a bit of background, where you grew up, the family, how you got into the industry.
Yeah, I was born in Belfast in 1961 and grew up there. My dad was a publican. And, of course, publicans in Ireland, it's synonymous with horses and dogs. That's part of the CV. And he actually, where my dad started was he got four dogs together one night and landed a bit of a coup with a Yankee, and that's what got him going in the world. So I was going to sort of follow his footsteps in some way. I went into the restaurant game with him. The rest of the family, I've got 6 siblings. Most of them are lawyers, and I did study law myself for a period of time, but I knew my heart wasn't in it, to go into that. And my dad had taken me racing all his life. He had some good horses. He had a horse called Samuel Pepys that won the day before Red Run won his 3rd Grand National. He had entry. He trained with Mick O'Toole. He had horses trained with Mick O'Toole, Fred Rimmel, all sorts of great racing legends, And I had a great childhood with him going to the racetracks, and Desi Hughes was our jockey, and
fabulous.
It was just a wonderful time, And it's in my blood, and racing is everything to me.
Sure. And then in terms of getting into the industry, I mean, I think from maybe guys of our vintage, if you like, we all had careers before this amazing industry that we're in these days sort of came along. So what were you doing immediately before getting into this crazy industry of ours?
I was running a nightclub in Belfast, would you believe? I was 21 years of age. My dad had bought an old hotel inside the security zone. So in Belfast in those days, you had to get searched to go to the shops. You had to get searched to go into the city centre. It was all cordoned off. And his hotel was within those security gates. So anybody coming to the nightclub got searched coming in, But we had, I went over to the Isle of Man, funny enough, for the first time, way back then when I was about 19 years of age. And I saw an afternoon disco being run on the Isle of Man. I thought, God, there's one of those in Belfast. So I went back to my dad, who had this hotel, which had been bomb damaged as well. And the function room was not being used. So I said to him, look, I'll hire it off you. I'll set up an afternoon disco, which turned into disco 7 nights a week. And that's where I got started. My first move into gambling, so to speak, was I became the licensee for Barcrest in Northern Ireland, the Manchester company.
Right.
And I started supplying slot machines. And so I was going around the Falls Road on the Shankill Road, and we know the Falls Road is the Celtic area of Belfast, the Shankill Road is the Protestant area. So when I was on the Falls Road, I was Vincent. When I was on the Shankill Road, I was Victor.
Okay.
And, and I had to do those sorts of things to survive in those days, you know.
Yeah.
And some scary things happened in the nightclub. You know, I had a situation where I very nearly got shot 2 or 3 times, but we survived all that, thankfully. And then my brother, who's a lawyer in Dublin, had partnered up with a guy who wanted to start some betting shops in the south of Ireland, and he wanted me to go down and help run them. And I moved down to Dublin. I was about 29 at that stage, Lee, and went into the betting shops for the first time. And our first betting shop was actually directly behind Paddy Power's first betting shop. Nobody remembers the name of my betting shop.
Okay.
But we ran that for 4 or 5 years, that chain of shops, and we actually sold them out to Carl's, and then there was a TD down there who had a company called Celtic Bookmakers, or Celtic Bookmakers, whatever way you want to pronounce it, and he bought the rest of them. And when that happened, I moved to the Isle of Man. So in 1995, I came over here for the first time.
Okay.
And when I got myself based here in the Isle of Man, obviously the opportunity came along to do some internet betting.
Really early days.
It was the very, very early days.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember typing the word internet and betting into the search engine, whatever the hell it was. That's just kind of what it was. And there was like 4 items came up, and one of them was about somebody being arrested in Costa Rica for illegal gambling. You know, so it was completely in its infancy. I mean, there was no, it didn't exist. You know, we had to go here and find a group of guys on the Isle of Man who were very bright, intelligent guys. But then we had to try and explain to them how to build an internet site, because they didn't go and buy a product. We built our own product. There was only one choice out there, and the problem was that you know, they were looking to the bigger boys in the industry at that time, and they were just all beginning to start out. And I remember, funny enough, I got invited in 1998, I think it was, by Deutsche Bank to go to London and do a presentation. And on that board was myself. There was Mr. Black, who started Betfair. There was a guy who ran the Ritz Club, and there was David Gill, who was the CEO of Chelsea at that time, went on to become the CEO of Manchester United. And I did a presentation. I remember doing the presentation, and it was on, you know, this cottage industry called internet betting, which would be big at someday. And, you know, everybody was in the audience. And I remember one particular, I'll not say who it was an MD of one of the major PLCs coming up and sort of patting me on the back and saying, "Nice little presentation. I wish you well with your cottage or attic industry," basically, you know.
Wow.
He just didn't see it. And I remember sitting with Andrew Black and saying that day, you know, they don't see it. And you know, it was so early. And, you know, banking was going into the internet, and travel agents were going into the internet, but gambling just was thinking about it. So we saw an opportunity to build something and build it very quickly. So we started Bet Internet, and it was there was major hurdles. I mean, we were given a license by the Isle of Man government, one of only 3. And if I can bore you with a quick story on that, I knew Paddy Power were looking for the license, my old friends, and Stuart Kenny, who was the boss of Paddy Power at the time. I stuck his picture up on a dartboard in one of the betting shops over here, because there's only a couple of betting shops in the Isle of Man. I said to the guys behind the counter, "If this guy ever comes in here, call me and let me know he's here." So they rang me and said, "Oh, that guy Kenny's in." So I knew that Stuart was over for a license application. And I went to the newspaper and I said, you know, "Can you tell me if the application's in?" They said, "Yes, it is, but his documentation hasn't arrived yet." So I ran off, rang Barney Eastwood in Belfast, the legend that is from Northern Ireland betting,
yes, indeed,
BJ, and who sadly passed away this year in March. And I asked BJ to go 50-50 with me on a license, and BJ and I went 50-50. To cut a long story short, I was in the box in the court, and the Judge Moyle was Deemster, as we call him over here, was cross-examining me, and I'd been there for about 40 minutes, and I thought, my God, am I going to get this license or not? Paddy Power was sitting waiting to go next because I had got first crack at it, and he just said to me, I see from your background that you studied law, and suddenly you've fallen into the depths and depravity of gambling. How have you gone so low? And I just chuckled, and I thought to myself, I've got to go for it here. I said, to be honest, Your Honour, I've been at racetracks all my life. I've been in the courts for a small number of years, but the more honourable people I meet at the racetrack. And he was a big racetrack fan. I had no idea he was. And he just said, great, license granted. And I could see Powers going, oh, God, But we went on then. BJ didn't, want to go on to internet betting. And he had sort of got the license. We thought, Victor had just gone to Gibraltar. We thought we'd flick the license to somebody. And then I decided to run it and build Bet Internet, as I say. So I bought BJ back out again. And we floated about 4 months later for around 35 million sterling. It's grown very, very rapidly, very, very fast.
So it's an interesting time, actually, where you say, you were taking advantage of those, if you like, naysayers. And I can't help but think, we mentioned Corals earlier. I think Coral had sort of looked at that. Deutsche Bank, in fact, I think were one of their bankers at the time, whoever owned sort of late 90s Coral in those days. Deutsche Bank were definitely involved, Morgan Grenville. And at the end of the day, they ended up buying Eurobet because they knew that it would have taken them too long to have built their own. They bought Eurobet, who were doing something pretty similar at a pretty similar time. And Eurobet as a brand is still around, mostly Italian facing now, but just goes to show back in the pioneer days, those who saw the immediate opportunities, maybe, and those who don't. So it's whatever it is now, like late 90s, early 2000s, you've got a listed business. I mean, how were the early days? How much fun did you have taking on the big boys?
It was fantastic, and it was very stressful as well. I think, of course, when you go publicly, and I've got a new venture which we'll talk about later, which I'm not going to take public. And the reason for that is it just takes up so much of your time. I mean, you've got a small team. We were a small number of individuals. We've got a board. I've actually got another claim to fame because one of my employees has just been taken into the Hall of Fame. I believe the Betting Hall of Fame. I must be the only employer who has an employee gone in front of him. It's rather embarrassing, isn't it? Bill Mummery.
Okay, Bill. Yes.
So congratulations to Bill.
Yes, good old Bill.
But yeah. But I was, we had Mark Blandford come to us. Mark came to buy us twice with Sporting Bet. Myself and my brother went to see the guys in Austria, Win, Manfred, and the other chapman, the CEOs over there, and we just, we were looking at consolidation then ourselves, how we would compete against the big guys, how we would grow quicker, and everybody's doing sports betting, and I always had this fear because of, I've had a bit of background in America. I always had this fear that something might happen in the USA, and so I had a strange experience. I had a lunch invitation in the Isle of Man. There's a lady over here called Dizzy Wriggle, and Dizzy had a race course. Actually, at one time or another, there's been 4 race courses in the Isle of Man, and Dizzy asked me to go to lunch with Robert Sangster and Tom Collins, famous Tom Collins dictionaries and Bibles. And when I was there, she said, "Oh, by the way, I've got a tote license." And I said, "Oh, gosh, that's interesting. Is it still valid?" And she says, "Yeah." So she went off in a couple of boxes, dug out this tote license. I told her I'd take it off her hands. I took it, and effectively we went to the tax guys in Manchester, and we got a rate set for duty for betting tax. And we started then officially making our office into a racetrack. And we bought an Amtote Spectrum betting system from the United States, and we got Keith Johnson, who's the president of Amtote now, who in those days was their CTO, and Keith came over and with Bill installed the Amtote system for us here in the Isle of Man. So that was an extraordinary launch, and it changed my view of the world into tote betting and pari-mutuel and the US market and the global market, which is the bigger market. Sports betting is great and it's big, but if you want to be legal in lots of countries around the world, you got to look at Tote. You got to look at Power Mutual.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting actually during sort of lockdown when you think of the horse racing that actually continued pretty much unabated was Australia, Hong Kong, and the US. Three very, very strong tote operations, and I think there's something to be said for that. So I know you got to the States because when we first I think probably came across each other was when you were based in the States. So when did your relocation to the States and the opportunities that you saw there come along, Vincent?
I went there in 2003, and I mean initially what happened, I'd done a JV with an American group, but actually came over to get a license in the Isle of Man, couldn't get one, and we decided to do a JV, and we set up. They were greyhound operators, Lee. They were one of the biggest greyhound operators in Florida. And what we did was we went to the Irish and we got the rights to Irish greyhounds globally. And we set up a tote infrastructure in Ireland whereby if you were in Shelburne Park on a Saturday night, you could bet in Galway or bet into Cork or bet into Dundalk. And we did that for the Irish Greyhound Board to get the rights to be able to export the dog products. Unfortunately, when we put the satellite pictures up a few weeks after we put them up, Baghdad was bombed by the Americans and satellite costs went through the roof, and that was the end of that project pretty quickly.
Okay.
But I had met the Americans, and the American guys, had invited me to go over, and we set up call centers in the United States. So we put one up in Portland, in Oregon, one in Las Vegas, in Nevada, and one in New York State up in Buffalo. And from those, the dog guys, initially had done it to do their own dog betting online, customer service to their clients. But then they expanded into horses. And we ended up getting everybody. I mean, we got Churchill Downs, we got New York Racing Association, who owns Saratoga, Belmont Park, Aqueduct. So we had some of the biggest US operators, Parks as well in Philadelphia,
yep,
who used our facilities. And on a Saturday on a Saturday afternoon, we were doing the New York call center was handling about 30,000 to 40,000 calls and, several $1 million in handle. So very, 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 very quickly, they were very, very popular. It makes it sound, like it's easy, Lee, but as you know, the regulations in America, very difficult, very hard, long, slow, laborious progress to get them licensed. But once we got them licensed, they flew, And it's
you're absolutely right. Yes, having been through that process, and I think still now what we're seeing with the sports betting and iGaming, it's still the regulatory side is still a challenge, whether you're US based or coming from overseas, either as an operator or a supplier. So maybe bring us up to date. I know you've got a new venture related to tote betting and horse racing, virtual live racing. Tell us a bit about the background to that new idea, Vincent.
Yeah, I came back to the Isle of Man, actually, Lee. I came back here in 2014. My wife wasn't well, and she passed away subsequently in 2015. She was only 49 years of age. And I came back here with the kids and was kind of wondering where we go and what I would do. And the Americans had always said to me when I left, because the things had been so successful, they sort of said, whatever you want to do, come back to us. And I went to a party, my PA, who got me back on my feet, to be honest with you. She was a girl who ran lots of social events. And she invited me one day to go over, and I met this guy called Dave Mosley. And Dave had started a company called Red Action. I don't know, you probably came across Dave way back. It was one of the very first guys to build virtual products.
Yes, I remember.
And Dave had, it was about 2001, and of course they got lucky, as you know, the foot and mouth disease came along, wiped out British racing, kind of where we are again now. And it launched very quickly then on the back of that and grew, even though the graphics were nothing like they are these days. And so I met Dave, and we sort of hatched a plan to try and crack this thing in America. I went back to my old partners in America, US Off Track, and said, do you think that we could get this regulated? So we set up a company here in the Isle of Man, which is called Virtual Software Limited, and we've designed some bespoke software. In August 2015, we started the project. It took us about a year to put that together, and built a product. And then said to ourselves, okay, let's try and get this legal in a state that was friendly to us. And we knew that we had the call center going in Oregon. Things were very successful there, And so we took the approach to go for the regulations and the license in the Oregon state. It was a long process. If I tell you that in 2019 we had over 21 votes in houses, senates, in committees, out of committees to get it through. But it's been a wonderful process, and it really means something. You know, in the old days, as you remember, Lee, when people used to get a license, it was like, you know, give 3 tops of a cornflakes pack and you'll get a license in Costa Rica, you know, or somewhere else. These days, you know, to get a regulated license in the United States,
very
you know,
different.
it's taken us 3 years,
Yes.
3 years to do it. But my God, it's a worthwhile project.
Excellent. So what have you got? What is the product exactly, and what do you hope to do with it?
Well, what we've wanted to do, I mean, I've always looked at virtual products as you go into betting shops and it says, you know, Tinkersville or Booter's Town, which means nothing to nobody. And I always thought, why didn't the tracks do it themselves? And why does it always have to be a fixed odds betting product, you know, associated with bookmakers, which will not travel across the globe? So what we built was, or what we have built, is the first tote wagering virtual products. And we have built them on the basis of real racetracks. Now, when you went to go to the USA, as you know, I mean, if there's other products out there, virtual products at the moment, they wouldn't pass the sniff test in the USA, let's say, because same as poker stars have tried to get things legal in the United States on poker, it's not a legal situation. You've got to prove that it's a game of skill, and that it's, you know, and that's a very difficult thing with poker, because we all know poker's a big chunk of luck in it. With this project, we had to do a couple of things. We had to put some skill into it, so there's a form guide in it, and the other thing we had to do was we had to avoid random number generation, because that's viewed in the racing industry over there as robotic wagering. And so it's not a random number generator. It's based on old data of actual races taking place. So we've done a deal with racetracks to get their name and their track, and we make an exact replica copy of the track. We've done several up to date, and we also get their data from their race banks, and we clean that all up. We clear it up. And I suppose it's a bit like the old Night of the Races used to be in years gone by, when people used to go and do charity events on
sort of historical races. Yeah. So we've done that, and it's you know, we've built 6 to this point. We're in the process. We've signed track 7 and 8, and I'm looking to sign track 9 at the moment. And we're going to build those next 3. But the first lot are up. They're launched. They're on the Amtoad system. They're striking wagers, and we've put them in a sort of a test environment. I don't want to say it's a test, because they are actually live bets, but it's restricted, and it's only in 3 or 4 operators. We've signed about 7 ADW operators in the United States. ADW, for anybody who doesn't know, is account deposit wagering. And that's how the online operators work over there. Up to a point, you know, this is really the first time, or second time, I should say, that we've moved away from live racing. Live racing was the only thing to bet on in the United States legally online. Sure.
We then, you know, saw Amtoad get their instant racing game through in Kentucky. And in actual fact, that was one of the things that sparked in my head, well, if instant racing's legal and it's a rerun of old races, then why couldn't we build a virtual product along the same sort of lines?
So who do you hope?
Which is what we've done.
Yeah. So who do you hope this product is really for? Is this trying? You know, we've seen virtual racing come along. We saw virtual sports for sure get developed, and it was very popular during the pandemic. We saw almost every operator boosting their turnover on that particular part of the betting repertoire. Who is your product actually looking to target? Who are the likeliest customers and so on for your product when it goes fully live? Yeah,
well, the big launch initially is geared towards the United States, Lee, and you know, most of the tracks that we've built so far are US. Now we're looking at some international ones now, but mostly it's US facing. You know, the ADW operators, the licensed operators there will be the guys who take it on board. And I didn't want to build a product and then go off and hunt down to try and make a website, start looking for customers. Those days are gone, I the startups. It's too late for a startup like that. It was better to build a software product and go to the people with clients and say,
sure,
I've got this new product. Here we'll do a cut. What do you want? And work out a project with them. The other thing is, it's a big benefit to the tracks. I mean, obviously the race tracks are, as we all know, in dire straits at the moment, and from their benefit, it's a fine revenue stream. I'm going to tracks and saying, look, I'll build you a virtual version of your track for 400,000, 500,000 sterling. It's quite an investment on my part, and we build the track, and then we, as I say, do the data. We put the track up there. We start taking wages, and the track, of course, gets a commission from that. So it's a new revenue stream for the racetrack as well. On top of that, of course, there is the obvious markets, which are the betting shops as well, and the OTBs around the world, casinos. I mean, in the US, as you know, lots of the casinos have huge sports books within them.
Indeed.
And we have, we're within the AMTOT system, so we're within that the betting engine of the United States, so to speak. We have the tote product there, and anybody in a sports book in the United States can walk up to a counter in any sports book in a casino and strike a wager on our product if we've done a deal with the casino. So we're at the minute negotiating casinos. We're negotiating with the Indian reservations, and we're talking to racetracks as well, because racetracks could also take this product. I mean, it just looks like another racetrack, for all intents and purposes. And so it'll be displayed at racetracks and casinos online. It's streamed by a company called All Mobile out of New York. We stream it on the internet, and it's USA first, globe next.
Yep. It sounds fascinating. How, if some of our listeners want to find out more, where should they go? How do they get in touch with virtual live racing, Vincent?
Well, we have a website, virtualliveracing.com, and you can go there, see some samples of the products. I mean, the products are improving all the time. The technology is changing all the time, Lee. I mean, actually, we're just about to venture onto our 7th and 8th products, and in those, they will for the first time have live backgrounds in them. Up to this, we've built everything from scratch, but now it's almost like a film crew. Like, we have a track at the moment that we're going to send a film crew into the next couple of weeks, and these guys are from National Geographic. They won Emmy Awards, all sorts of things, and they're going in to film that for us, which will take about a 3-day shoot, and then all that live background will be used, and we literally put the horses inside that.
Sounds excellent.
With regards to the tracks here, we're trying to internationalize this as well. We're trying to go into Britain and Ireland, but we know that you were asking about the customer. We know that within the UK and Ireland, it will be difficult to get a deal with the betting shops here, or get into the betting shops here. There are obviously lots of them have their own products. The question is, do they want a virtual version of this? And how much they're prepared to pay for it, how much we could strike a deal with them. It's not one I want to fight yet. It's one that I'm still to crack America first, and then maybe look at Asia. But at some point, we come back to the UK and Irish market and visit it.
No, I completely understand the focus on the US in terms of the importance of horse racing and the acceptance of tote betting. Sounds like you're in the right place at the right time. So listen, great. It's and as you know, with the COVID thing, Lee, it slows things down a little. I mean, obviously moving bodies around the USA, moving technical people around. I mean, some tracks are closed at the minute, some casinos are limited. It's obviously a little more difficult, but it's slowed us. It's not stopping us, and we're blessed that we're in this sector at the moment. It's almost like a perfect storm for success for us. In that the COVID situation going on across the United States has really given us an opportunity to expand fairly quickly, and so I'm actually building. I wanted to build three more tracks in the first quarter next year. I'm going to try and build 12 in total. I mean, building those 12 tracks, if I build 12 tracks and I put them up, I've got 87,600 races to run, which is 3 or 4 times the size of the American market itself at the moment, the live market. And we only need to get a small amount of money on each one, Lee. I mean, if you look at Saratoga summer meet, their races every day,
each race, there's about $1.3 million bet across America. If I said to you, could I get 5,000? If I'm in that same market and I put, virtual betting up, and virtual betting around the world, 35 countries, very successful everywhere it goes. If I put it up in the USA and all those outlets in front of all those millions of eyes, could I get $5,000 a day, $5,000 a race per day? And you think to yourself, yeah, that sounds a pretty achievable market. If we only get $5,000 on each race, our handle's $432 million for the year. So the numbers are just astronomical on small numbers on each race,
Brilliant. Listen, good luck with that, Vincent. Sounds fascinating. Definitely right place, right time. And it's been really great to catch up and hearing about what you're up to these days, and that you're still very much involved in this fascinating industry of ours. Thanks again, Vincent.
You're very welcome, Lee. And just, say a little prayer for horse racing, because it's the love of our lives, and we want to, it all to survive. I'm sure, unfortunately, a lot of it won't, but we hope that it will. And thanks for listening to me. And